So the developers of the Riot MMO, okay, quit working for Riot and have decided to go make their own game. Okay, and they had an AMA live stream about that game as one of the next big MMOs that's kind of in production. Okay, this is the fantastic Pixel Castle live stream AMA. This is Juicer.
Hello, fellow kids. Welcome to the...
Hello, fellow kids. I also say that. Never mind the fact that he is also losing his hair at a startling rate.
First FPC live stream. I'm Greg Street. I started this studio, and I'm also the game director for our MMO that we call Ghost. You are probably wondering what is going on. We are a remote studio, and we don't have an office space, and one of our values is to not take ourselves too seriously. So we found the most ridiculous space we could for our stream today.
Bro, they're living it up good. I need to be a game developer, man. I'm in the wrong line of work. They told me teaching made money.
I brought some of the team here to help answer your questions. So why don't you guys introduce yourself?
Hey, my name's Cameron. I'm the Chief Technology Officer. That means I support the engineering team who are building the tech for the game. Thanks so much for being here with us.
I like this guy. I don't know why. He just gives me a good vibe. You know what I mean? He just seems kind of like a W person.
Hi, my name is David Kublak. I'm the art director. I support basically design, code, everything with creating content for art and design.
He's the only art major that actually has a job outside of college.
Hey everyone, I'm Ed, UX director for Ghost, and I do everything from controls to UI to the occasional presentation, prettifying, and for my friends out there in my Sapphire Guild, if you are not watching this, you're probably loot locked next week, so enjoy.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm head of product, which means I look at things like user research and how do we build a game that gives players everything they need.
Hi, I'm Shanti. I'm the head of the IP. We're making a brand new universe for this game from the ground up to support the game.
I don't like him. He's got too much hair.
Play, but also be a place that we hope you can come and enjoy for a couple
It's too
decades.
luscious.
So very happy to be here.
Hello, I'm Brian. I'm the gameplay design director. So my job is mostly around the classes and the combat and the traversal and basically everything you do when you press a button and punching monsters, those types of things.
Punching monsters.
Yes.
My name is Candace. I'm the content design director, which means I dabble in things like red and blue shards, the cities, raids, quests, dungeons, the open world, all that fun stuff. And
Why is baldage an emote in my chat? Also, guys, be cool. Be cool.
do the monsters and enemies,
Jesus Christ, bro. She comes on the screen and the entire chat's, girl!
which you, as aforementioned, punch.
We were limited on the number of golden couches we can fit in this room. So we have a bunch of other people in the studio. Just want to shout out to them as well. You'll be seeing a lot of this crew, and you'll be seeing a lot of the whole team.
Okay. All right.
So let me start just by talking a little bit about Ghost before we get to your questions. I want to stress we're in early development, and that means the art and ideas are not final.
That means they're going to throw shit at us wildly without having to promise anything. Excellent. I love this stage of development.
And that's the whole point. We want to share all this with you early so that we can get feedback, make changes, and make the game better before we are finally live. We think the right way to tackle a project as big as an MMO is to be careful about where and how we innovate. We think this is a risk when you try to innovate too much. That's what leads to a MMO with a dev cycle of 10 to 15 years, and ain't nobody up here wants that.
Ashes of creation. Sorry. All right.
We're going to be really careful where we do innovate. A great example are Several of us came from World of Warcraft, and we love WoW's Dungeons and Raids. We don't think there is a lot we need to do there differently. We'll put our own spin on it. It's a different game. It's a different IP. But overall, we're not going to spend a lot of points innovating on things like that. However, we think adventuring, like going out into the world, doing quests, kind of figuring out where you're supposed to go next, has not aged super well. And we think that is a great opportunity to innovate. So I want to talk a little bit about that.
Oh. Yeah, look, drawings. Okay.
So our game is set in a shattered world where players look out into the sky from a mysterious ancient city and see countless shards of broken worlds waiting to be discovered. This is some of our latest concept art for that setting, but I also want to show you how this has already evolved. When the team was first brainstorming about the world, I got excited and made my own sketch of how the shards might float above the city, and everyone teased me about it mercilessly. And so I drew it again in Photoshop where it looked tiny bit better, and we used this for our first several pitch decks. This is what game development looks like. It starts looking pretty bad, you make it better.
This is what I do with my artist. I draw some dog shit fucking sketch in MS Paint, and then I hand it to him, and I just say, fix it!
Better and better.
And then they make it look like this. Okay, it's better.
Look what game development looks like. So you could actually draw, and eventually you should be able to produce something pretty cool. Our art teams took these concepts and got us to our latest vision, which we'll continue to experiment with further. This is by far not the final way the game will look.
Oh, this looks cool.
So you probably get the idea that one of the major focuses for us is creating two different types of world shards for players to explore. We're calling these red shards are like more traditional MMO zones with lots of danger, dungeons, and world bosses. This is where you'd find most of the dungeons and raids in the game, and other players, particularly strangers, are really important here.
Okay.
A player on Twitter compared them to WoW's Timeless Isle, and that's a great way to think about it. And then our blue shards will be more of a private realm for you and your friends. The design draws on some inspiration from survival games, but it's not about...
So where's the PvP at?
...starving or freezing to death. It's more about you charting your own path the way you want. And while the red shards offer a consistent theme park experience for every player, the blue shards open up individualized and different sandboxes for you and whoever you choose to let in with you. The basic loop of Ghost when you play is you'll go back and forth between the blue shards and red shards. Perhaps you need an important reagent for your next upgrade that can only be found in the red shards. Or maybe your friends let you know that a rare boss just appeared and that boss drops great loot, but you'll need to assemble a small army to go and dispatch it. These accomplishments are then things you can bring back to further improve your character and the blue shards. Now we think the opportunity here is that when you're playing on a blue shard, your actions will be permanent, whether you deplete a mine or clear out a dragon's lair. If you want to build a village for you and your friends, there won't be random players walking through to mess up the experience.
We would have none of those players in BDO. But if a player were going to mess up the experience, how might we do that exactly?
If you want to set up a guild versus guild PvP shard, you won't have to worry about random arrivals later on causing an imbalance.
Are you telling me that other guilds would come and disrupt what would normally be a good fight? Subscribed. Get the fuck out of here.
But without
Spectra HC with the brand new Prime sub, man. Thank you so much.
Without random players, you don't really have an MMO, right? So the red shards are where you get that massive multiplayer experience that we all love. Now, it's easy to talk about world shards in a way that sounds really dry or even disconnected, and honestly, systems designers are really good at doing that, which is why developing the world of Ghost is really important to us as well.
What the fuck is going on with
that? Our goal is for Ghost to be immersive, mysterious, and worthy of your time and investment.
That's some nightmare fuel, boys.
We take inspiration from everything from Elden Ring to D&D's Planescape.
Hey, we know that game.
Because we want the world of Ghost to be a fresh take on the fantasy genre, we're experimenting with a lot of different types of creatures and races you'll encounter, and that work even carries into class design. We want to have a lot of classes, and while you probably won't find something as basic as warrior or mage, some of the classes will be familiar, and then some of them will honestly be a little weird, like this room. We hope everyone can create characters and find classes.
Define weird. I don't want you to reinvent the wheel. I just want to play a druid.
Classes that fit the playstyle they love. But alts are also core to the idea of playing Ghost. So experimenting with different classes should feel rewarding and not like you're falling behind. Our classes are organized into different factions, and these factions are working secretly against each other, sometimes with each other, to determine the future of the city. The factions don't limit who you can play with. This isn't about preventing you from playing with your friends.
Okay. So does the game have an alpha beta? No, this is still in. So these are the developers that left the Riot Games MMO and decided to make their own MMO. And they're talking about where they are so far in development. They're still in very early like development exploration phase, but apparently they do have at least some of it built.
They're just there to give the classes some depth and motivation to help drive our narrative. You can see here some visual exploration of one of our earlier factions. But I want to stress, not every faction would adopt
America. Just name the class America.
This art style. And there will be a gamut from dark and serious to cute and silly and probably even dangerously sexy.
Now you're speaking our language.
So with that, we'd like to get into some of your questions. And I want to introduce one more member of the team.
Hold up.
John is our biz guy, and he is going to be our MC for today.
Hey, John.
Yay, John.
Hello, John.
Hey, everyone. So I've nominated myself responsible for reading the questions out to the team. We'll start with the first one, Brian. This one is a heavy-hitting question, but it was one of the most upvoted. So Towel the Tank asks, will there be tanks in your game? And if so, how many?
Well, I'm not surprised. I know Tali's a great guy, so I'm not surprised that his tweet was well-liked in addition. Yes, there are certainly going to be tanks in our game, but I think we want to...
So they're probably going with the trifecta, guys. The support, tank, DPS.
Look at and revisit what tanks mean to the group in terms of gameplay, right? What do they do on a second-per-second basis? Does the boss always have to be hitting them or their tank buddy? Could it just be that there are key moments where the tank needs to be there to defend their team against a huge attack? Or is it possible that there's just a big guy in the group that, you know, like when you see Marvel's Endgame, that the Hulk's got to match up with the big brute.
That's what we want.
Thanos' crew there. So just trying to find, you know, and explore different options there. And that could mean that we have, you know, some tanks that are in melee as they traditionally.
I want my knuckles to drag on the ground when I run.
Maybe we have pet class tanks. Maybe we have range tanks. I don't know. It'd be cool to hear what you all think about those types of things. And when we do experiments and explore that, have you try them and see what you think. So thanks for the great question.
Thanks, Brian.
He's like, I am done talking. Please transition.
This next one's for you, Shanti, from Ritzadet, who asks, will the game's story, world, and inhabitants treat each player character as if they are the hero?
That's a good question. For Black Desert Online, we still don't know.
That's a great question. A lot of RPGs have the benefit of, you know, having one player and they can kind of be the center of the story. MMORPGs have thousands and thousands of players, and so it's a little bit more unwieldy to have something like the Chosen One, because you have to ignore all the other thousands of Chosen Ones around you.
Yes, they understand.
We're going with something much closer to how Destiny does it, for an example, where you're part of an elite crew, an elite group that has powers greater than the average NPC or civilian you see on the street. This gives us room to introduce
we like Destiny.
NPC characters, develop their arcs alongside you, and kind of have it feel like, you know, you don't have the entire burden of the universe on your shoulders. You have others to bear it with and adventure alongside. Great question.
All right, next question over to Candice from at Ex-Riot. What is the...
If at some point chat does not ask Candy's nuts fit in your mouth, I'm going to be a little upset. I'm going to be honestly a little disappointed with chat.
Reason for having blue shards and red shards? It seems like blue shards are their own survival game base builder that's separate from the MMO. Why can't this exist in the red shards or vice versa?
I think the superpower of our game is in the blue shards. And when we say that you're going to play blue shards, it could mean that you're just playing one blue shard for the entire season or the entire expansion, just like...
I'm going to let her talk. The blue shard guys are the one, that's the PvE one.
But it could also mean that you're playing several...
That's the one where you build the world yourself and everything is permanent.
Shards, or maybe even just dozens. The idea behind blue shards is that we're always going to give you a lot of variety. So we love exploration. We love the exploration element of survival games. And since these blue shards are kind of generated just for you and your party, we can always throw some cool, like, wacky surprises at you.
I'm gonna move through these questions until I find one that I... Do you plan on supporting UI mods, and if so, will they be curtailed so as to not create an arms race present in WoW, or will you take the Final Fantasy approach? This is a good one. We don't have add-ons in BDO. They don't allow them.
Great. Okay, I'll toss the next question over to Ed. This one comes from @MysticalOS, who asks, do you plan on supporting UI mods, and if so, will they be curtailed to not create the arms race present in WoW, or will you take the Final Fantasy approach?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Spicy.
We do not like add-ons.
I know, it's spicy. Thanks for the question, Mr. OS.
When I download the fucking game, I shouldn't have to download 6 or 7 more add-ons just to do the goddamn end game content with my friends that I want to do.
Fan. So I think you've astutely called out like that there is a pretty big risk to doing something like add-ons in the context that say like WoW does them, right? Where you can get to the point where you've got all these interesting fights with great mechanics, and then you have people who are sort of just in this arms race with the developer to like build add-ons that play the game for you, right?
There it is. There it is. Thank you. Thank you. Don't do that. Add-ons are great until they're just playing the fucking game for you.
Shout out to Foji and WoW Classic for doing this for my raid in Wrath of the Lich King. And so I think that's something that we probably don't want as much of. I think the combat modifying add-ons world is probably not one we want to live in.
Take.
While we don't know exactly what we're going to do, there's probably some great use cases for exploring add-ons, and I'll try to talk about a couple of them.
Some add-ons are okay. I agree with him. Some add-ons are okay. Okay, what's the next question?
MMO special. What's your strategy to keep optimization from destroying the social fabric of the game?
Oh my fuck.
Like exactly what
Bro, that question was loaded. Hold up.
All right, Greg, this next one's addressed to you from @DakoTiak, who says, more and more systems-heavy games seem to be dominated by the soulless quest of optimization at the expense of social decency. Greg mentioned social play is what makes MMO special. What's your strategy to keep optimization from destroying the social fabric of the game?
Okay, to break that question down a little bit for you guys, BDO struggles with this tremendously, but it was a lot of big words very quickly. System-heavy games seem to be dominated by soulless quests for optimization at the expense of social decency. In other words, Marnie's Realm, convenience features, I want to play this game solo, and like giga optimize every part of my gameplay so that, you know, like I'm progressing at the maximum possible rate. And in order to do that, I have to play by myself, right? I can play on my own and super optimize the way I play. And they said that this basically destroys the social fabric of the game.
So peeling back the curtain a little bit here, the historical business model for a lot of MMOs was to keep players playing as much as possible because that's, you know, where the revenue comes from.
I think this is a call out to WoW. It's absolutely a call out to WoW. Like systems in WoW, like the Raid Finder system, were extremely controversial, and I think in a large part kind of contributed to the game's overall decline. Although it's doing really well right now, it's because of hardcore. Also, Season of Discovery just came out.
And we don't think that has aged super well. Like when Baldur's Gate 3 came out, I wanted to just play a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, and if I had been raiding or something at the time, you know, that might have been an issue for my guild. If you're a hardcore raider, like my friend Ed here, that may be fine. You may want to raid all the time, and we know that the optimization game is fun for some players. They want to try to, like, you know, first you beat the boss, then you try to beat your friend's DPS. Like, we get it, and that's fine. But we really are.
We did that in Destiny a lot.
Trying to design Ghost to fit in your life.
Speedrun.
Because we're releasing the story in chapters, if you feel like you've kind of seen the end and you want to take a break for a little while, like, that's fine. We're not going to get mad at that, and we're going to try to make sure all the systems in the game can support that. So if you want to push blue shards, if you want to keep trying to do harder and harder raids or engage in PvP, like, all good, and we'll support that. But if you want to make room for other games or, you know, God forbid, work with your family, you could do that as well.
Boys, they said they were going to support PvP. All of the other bullshit aside.
God forbid.
Great. Okay, next question over to Brian. With respect to combat, the website describes targeting in such a way that it's not clear if it means tab targeting or fixed combat. Will it be real-time combat like we see in New World, Black Desert Online, and so forth, or will it be a hybrid like Guild Wars 2?
good question.
I think the short answer is more of a hybrid. The long answer is that, first and foremost, our game is to be playable on the PC with a mouse and keyboard, right? We feel like there are millions of MMO players out there. They're very comfortable in that environment, and being able to click on individual targets, being able to hit tab to select them.
Just tuned in. This is Fantastic Pixel Castle. This is the AMA of the developers that left Riot Games. They were working on the Riot Games MMO, decided they weren't happy, and now they're making their own MMO and they're talking about it.
That's something they're used to, and it's a very approachable model, right? There's a lot of people that you've been probably able to introduce to MMOs in the past. And
I like real-time combat, if I'm being honest. I'm probably in the minority there, but I really like real-time combat just because that's how BDO does it. The tab target stuff it's definitely easier to grasp, for sure, like he said there.
They're very quickly able to get into the game, right? And we want that. We want, one of the most important things about playing this game is playing with your friends. And so part of that is making sure that it's approachable for everyone. What we also want to do, though, is we want to make sure that it can be played with a controller. And so that has certain challenges, right?
Couldn't be BDO. Console players are in shambles.
And certain things we might have to do differently. And so we're exploring other ways that you would do targeting, more of like what we often call like a soft lock targeting system, where you're maybe on a controller and the right stick moves the camera, and it's basically doing tab targeting for you. It's selecting a target based on where your crosshair is looking. And then trying to add a lot of mechanics from, popular action.
I think it's a good idea to optimize the game for a mouse and keyboard, but also have the controller plugin. BDO has this, but the controller is just not as good.
Combat games that you might see, like Shadows of...
It also needs to be cross-platform. You don't have console be on their own servers. That's just stupid. That was just an L take, and the developers have been getting shit on for it ever since that console got released.
Mordor, or even Spider-Man, or Assassin's Creed. There's a lot of things they do with combos and assassinations and counters that we think we can bring into MMO combat and make it a bit more interactive,
counters, Pog?
And physical and interesting. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of targeting and combat at this time.
Yeah, I think you
acceptable
brought up
answer,
controller, right? And I think we've been exploring just on the team already, how can more fine-grained targeting work with a controller, right? Yeah. That's something that we would need to have even if we otherwise had tab targeting. So there's stuff like that I think we're already digging into, which is exciting. And I don't know, maybe we'll share it with players online.
For people with carpal tunnel, yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, it's good to have a plugin for controllers and stuff. Have a route for players that with a controller that they can play the game. That's good. It's a W. It means more players can play your game. You can market it to more people.
Or something at some point and get feedback and talk about it, because I think that'd be really fun to do.
What is the art direction of the game? More stylized like WoW or more realistic?
Yeah,
Will it be built in a way that it won't become outdated graphically with options for visual upgrades in the future? Will it be...
Can I see the pores on my character's respectful skin?
Third person or isometric or something else?
That is a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I'm gonna start.
Honestly, the most important part of this question is: will it be third person or isometric? Third person being like BDO, isometric being more like the top down. I think is what that means. Kind of like Lost Ark.
With the art style one, this is it, right?
Yeah, no.
No, I think I think when we were going through the slideshow earlier, there was a wide range of things that we were showing, and that goes also back to some of the things that we were saying in the beginning. We are early in development. In that early development, we're exploring the boundaries of where we want to go with the look of the game.
Third person.
With the tone of what we're trying to do with the narrative and the IP. We know we're not going to be too stylized or cartoony, but we also know, to your point of things that...
We can have waifus, boys. Well, realistic-looking waifus.
End up being dated. This is a game that we want players to love and play, not just for years to come, but for decades to come. So it also won't be a game that is ultra realistic. So in this kind of
take the middle ground, fuck
we'll
it.
kind of be working to refine where that actual direction is.
All right.
And I think the third part of your question about the camera, I think we can lock it in that it is going to be a third person camera, not isometric.
Unless you
W
hate it,
take.
then we'll change.
W take. Good. We like the third
You all gotta
person.
hate it, though.
Good.
As long as
Good.
one person likes it, we're going
W.
Chat
God.
seems happy so far with that response. So we'll,
Oh, good.
My chat seems happy with it too. Good.
All right, we can keep our job.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Chad.
So this next question, actually, I'll
Knowing oceanic servers would be a pipe dream, in what ways would you design the game to reduce the impact of higher ping on the ability to effectively play the game? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, we're gonna try to make it lag as little as possible. Like, okay. Will this game have cross-server grouping for players? Can NA play with the EU homies? Yo, hold up. Let them cook.
server grouping for players. Can NA play with EU homies? Cam, that feels, as our resident Australian expert and CTO, that feels like a good set of questions for you.
Yeah, for start, I love this question because I'm
I love this guy.
Australian, and growing up in Australia and wanting to play MMOs when they first came out, it was really hard, and so I actually didn't get to play MMOs for a really long time. So I can really empathize, and it's really important to me that we actually solve this. I think the combat that Brian described actually can make the game quite latency friendly, and so we can have players playing with each other from all over the world. I don't think it's the right answer to just say we'll have oceanic servers. I think the right answer is to make it that you can be part of the worldwide community.
You can actually clean your teeth off the top of his head.
And so that also goes to the second part of this question, which was about how easy is it going to be to group with friends. It needs to be easy. Like, one of the core tenets of our game is that you can play with your friends. And so if you then had to do like some kind of weird transfer or play on a different server or not have your characters, that would be a pretty terrible experience. And so we're pretty committed to that. The exact server model we don't know yet, but it'll be very friendly to playing with your friends, playing with people in other countries, and for, like, you know, latency tolerant connections.
Oh shit, so we can actually play with the EU homies.
I hope chat likes that answer too.
Yeah.
The Australians in the chat.
W take.
All right, let's switch it up a bit and start taking some of the questions live from chat too. So 100 Fists asks, how do you avoid falling into the procedural generation traps that so many other games fall into?
Yeah, Greg, how?
100 fists.
Want me to take this one? Procedure generation like AI or just like soulless?
I actually think that they should have some AI in their game. I think some procedural
random
generation is
games?
good.
Probably can't answer fast enough to make this work, but
I don't know. Yeah.
I'll answer it both ways. We're relying a lot on variability and random generation for our blue shards, but we take a lot more inspiration from,
just
someone who's worked on
for
Age
2
of
months. Keep him live all week, chat.
Yeah, Flyside, thanks for the reset for 2 months, man. Welcome back. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Empires, which has random maps, or Civilization. Those are not procedurally generated in the sense that it's just a bunch of empty fields and maybe the field is green or maybe it's brown or maybe there's a bush. Like, we want to make sure these maps are fun to explore and that you see cool things on them and that adventuring is fun. Sometimes procedural generation
is good.
Creates like a soulless experience where you have a great quantity of places to explore, but none of them are that interesting. That's the exact opposite of what we're going for. We want the experience of starting a new blue shard to be really exciting because you don't know what you're going to find, and it could be very different from anything you've seen before.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, and also to add to that, I mean, you'll find things like side missions, you'll find things like recurring characters. We have a lot of tricks up our sleeve to make it feel like it's still one contiguous world. The other thing that we're exploring that could make it feel really cool is like giving the player a modicum of control over their blue shard. So it's not just randomly procedural.
If the combat's not as the same level as BDO, I'll skip. I don't think it's necessarily it's gonna feel a little different. They said they were gonna do like a hybrid tab target real-time combat, and I think that could be better than BDO. Technically, it depends on what engine that they're using and how they kind of go about it.
Procedurally generated, this is what you get. What if you could do things like adjust the difficulty? What if you could do things like adjust the season, or even bigger things like that? Like,
Crazier.
what if you could turn on rules that let you turn on PvP permanently and kill other players and loot their bodies? Like, we want to give you so much control over this thing that it feels like you're breaking the game. Now, does that mean that you can just crank the difficulty to easy and like get all of your gear? Probably not. We're going to control the things that you
Goon, I don't know where they were sitting at this moment, but Goon's ears all just universally perked up when she said that.
need to get, the scarcity of resources, stuff like that. That's on the red shards. But when it comes to blue shards, we really want to let you play your way, and we want to get pretty freaking radical about it. And so I don't have anything to show right now, but
First time I've heard somebody call something rad in years.
Hopefully we get to do some more deep dives on what blue shards actually are, because I feel like we've really only scratched the surface on what we want to do with these blue shards.
Totally rad.
Yes, long story short, we hope that they don't feel soulless because you have your own spin that you can put on them, but also because the stuff that you do in your blue shards is not going to be soulless. You're going to be creating a community with your friends. You're going to be...
Hello, fellow kids. All right, let's see what the next question is.
Narratively, you're going to be uniting this shard.
Was... All right, so we heard it here first. It will not feel soulless. That's great to hear.
Good. All right. Good. Yeah.
So let's. We're just going to start rotating back and forth from live and the ones that came in from social. So a question that was submitted earlier from Woover was really excited to see some of the crew back together again. I'm having concerns about the game being backed by NetEase. I understand the game needs to make money, obviously, but NetEase makes me think of the MTX and Diablo Immortal. Will this be similar?
No. I mean, in short, we have not...
Please don't overly monetize the game. Please don't overly monetize the game. Please don't overly monetize the game.
Finalized our business model yet, but honestly, it's...
Hashtag microtransactions.
Probably going to be something like you pay for a box or you pay for a subscription. Like, we almost certainly is not going to be like a free-to-play game with microtransactions. We might have microtransactions, but it certainly won't be pay-to-power.
There it is. I don't mind microtransactions as long as it's not like the pay-to-win shit. That's fine. That's fine. I like to,
decided to work with NetEase.
I don't know. He very delicately skirted that question. He was like, yeah, no, he's a great politician. Great politician. Will you have microtransactions? No, we will probably not have microtransactions. You're like, wait.
Because they made this crazy offer of they want to fund us and let us kind of make whatever game we want with whatever team we want, and then they'll be there to support us along the way. So it is the most freedom.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's good.
I've ever had as a game developer. I've been doing this for 25 years.
Freedom is good.
It's awesome, and I think that is what has allowed us to attract so many great people to work on the game. But again, love to hear feedback, even once we start talking about the.
I'm skeptical. I'll be honest. Of course, he's going to have a lot of freedom early on. He said he's had the most freedom with NetEase. That's a W for NetEase. But also, NetEase doesn't know how to monetize the game yet. But they do know that they will be able to monetize it eventually. So, like, I don't know. I'm skeptical of this.
The business.
I don't mind people making money off the game. That's totally fine. Some microtransactions here, sure. Buy to play, sure. Subscription, sure. Whatever. But like the pay to win stuff needs to stay out of it. And don't throw the microtransactions all over my face.
Model. That's the kind of stuff that we'd like to have. We want players to feel good about spending money.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to be able to accomplish that. I don't ever hand Jay my credit card and go, boy, that felt good. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be a bit of a reach. What game? This is Fantastic Pixel Castle, although they'll probably change the name of it.
Great. Next question then from Ciro in chat. You've mentioned a lot of classes. While it's obviously too early for an exact number, is there a ballpark for how many you plan to launch with? Maybe over to Brian for that.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked from anywhere from 20 to 50. I think one of the things to focus.
I was thinking like 6. What?
Focus on with the number of classes is that playing the game we expect you to play.
Y'all motherfuckers are always like, BDO has too many classes. The amount of classes in this game is too damn high. Meanwhile, these developers, we might come out with 50 at launch.
A bunch of different classes, and so there may not be as much depth in terms of customization and taking a single class into 3 to 4 different directions, but it's more going to be that, this class, it's very easy for my rat catcher to not look like Greg's rat catcher.
There it is.
And for us to have some choices in how we.
I would like a rat catcher class in BDO. How does one obtain the rat catcher?
Catch our rats.
I would like to catch the fucking lawns that constantly try to turbo me. I would like to catch those people.
But not necessarily that the rat catcher can do 4 different roles and there's the talent choices for all of them. So I think in that respect, we're going to see, but then, we could really go deep on the rat catcher fantasy.
So I think that they're going to take the BDO approach on this, guys. So like you play a Kunoichi, you're going to play a rogue assassin. That's just how it is. It's just how it is. No matter what way you choose to go with Kuno, you're always going to play a rogue assassin. You can't play Kunoichi and play frontline tank. It's just not how it works, right? Just like that.
Because we only have to say this is what rat catchers do, right? And so I think that's
Okay.
part of what we're talking about here. So yeah, something in the 20 to 50 spaces.
Let's see what the next question is.
We have not launched our game. We've not shown gameplay yet, but at Nary 5th is perhaps the first player that we've already lost. They write, "No elves. You can't do this to me." Do you ever?
We love our very respectfully thick elf chicks.
A response?
So we want to develop this game with players from day one. That's why we're all sitting here, cracking jokes and trying our best not to spoil anything. Over the coming years, we will say things that aren't clear. We'll try features that end up not working out. And that's just kind of the part of the journey that we want to take you upon. So in the spirit of that, let me clarify the elves comment, because this is one of the first things we heard was players who were like, but I love elves. We do too, actually. I can't remember the last game I played a human in, if there's any other option to play other races. What we don't want to do is transpose Tolkien's Lord of the Rings elves and dwarves and plop them into our universe, because we're making something from the ground up that is ownable and made to be in the shape the game needs it to be. So we're going to have some great races. They're going to call back to a lot of the fantasies and the reasons people like elves, like dwarves, but they're going to have...
They're not going to have elves, but they're going to have elves.
Our spin on it and be ownable for our IP in a way that we think you're really, really going to like.
Yeah, and if I could add something to that, Shanti, I think early development, it isn't always just being general about telling people things that have no context.
Yeah.
I mean, we could say early development and not say anything, but...
That's what you're doing right now.
To your point, sometimes we are...
We asked a very simple question. Will there be elves? And we have been talking for 3 minutes. Just give it to me straight.
Just saying what we're thinking right now and want to get that feedback to kind of understand, what is it about elves that you like? What is it about that persona? What is it about that speaks to...
If there's nothing about elves that I particularly like in general, but if I was going to put a finger or perhaps a whole hand on the reason that we like elves so much, it would probably be here and here respectfully. Okay.
To players so that we could better understand that and actually, figure out how to work those things into our game.
Yeah, and I want to double down on that.
What about the face? They're wearing armor, so you can't actually see it.
Because I think it's so important to us that we understand the fantasies that these classes and these races are providing, so that we can learn what...
Just better.
Okay, do you plan on releasing the game and patches worldwide at the same time? Oh, okay. That's... Well, they're not a Korean developer, so probably.
Do you plan on releasing the game and patches worldwide at the same time?
So short answer, yes. I think we want a worldwide community, and it's just better if everyone gets the same content at the same time. And so that is our aspiration. That's what we want to do. Sometimes there are practical reasons why that's difficult.
Actually, we were thinking of releasing China first because, you know what? We figured we would give Korea the first patch. What did you expect him to say? We actually figured that since America is strictly a better country, that we were going to give them the patch before everybody else.
Different platforms, different countries, but wherever possible, we'll make sure the game and the patches are released at the same time worldwide. And same deal, you don't want to get spoiled because someone in some other country found out about the content and then you didn't...
Exactly, dude. Bro, BDO does this all the time. They release it first in KR, we all see it, but we don't get to play it. It kills the hype for the rest of the worldwide release, and then none of us are hyped to play it. I mean, yeah, we're gonna play it, but like,
get a chance to see it, and you've already heard about it. And so wherever possible, it'll be worldwide.
Except Australia.
wait a minute. Did you see what he said right at the end there? Hold on, back up. This is exactly what Jay said. Jay got asked the exact same question at the Caltheon Ball, and he said, "Don't worry, guys. We're gonna move for worldwide releases everywhere where we can." And then we never got another worldwide release on anything.
Maybe we'll give it to them.
So wherever possible, and then you didn't even get a chance to see it, and you've already heard about it. And so wherever possible, it'll be worldwide.
Right there. Wherever possible.
Except Australia, maybe we'll give it to them first.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah, see? And they're even laughing about it. That's how fucking stupid this is. These developers are sitting around laughing about this. Releasing on other region first. What an idiotic concept.
Worldwide.
Except Australia, maybe we'll give it to them first.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Australia first, and then rest of world.
Yeah, right. Makes sense.
All right, Brian making the wisecracks over there, so you get the next question. This question comes from Denied, who asks, when it comes to characters and alts, will you have to level multiple different tunes like WoW and Guild Wars 2, or will it be more like Final Fantasy XIV, where I can have one character that can learn all jobs by changing stone or weapon combo?
Yeah.
It's a good question. That's a good question.
It's a good question. We touched on this a little bit before. I think we believe, you know, RPGs, it's a lot about creating a character, and your class has a lot to do with the identity of that character. And so we do want character and the classes to be tied together. So if you create a character, it's going to be that class, and that defines it, and you can, you customize it, you make it look that way. But we also want to have this ability to progress your alts or play a lot of alts. And so your progression will probably be more about you, the player, than necessarily your individual characters. There's a balance there. It's a tricky problem to say, how much do you make time investment?
Okay, so they have no fucking idea. They're going to talk for the next 20 minutes. Oh my God. Oh my God. That was a long question, bro. I'm glad they don't know. They don't know. Flat out, they have no idea. I'm interested in hearing more about accessibility options. A key one for me is how targeting works. Due to how I play because of my disability, I struggle with more action-based MMOs compared to easier tab target ones like WoW and Final Fantasy XIV. We already went through this question. They said it's going to be a hybrid.
Accessibility options. The key one for me is how targeting worked. Due to how I played.
We already went through this. They said it was going to be a hybrid. Okay, what's this one? I remember Greg remarking on the OG Plus podcast that WoW wants to be the only game you play due to the time commitment required. How will Ghost approach the time commitment challenge?
Game you play due to the time commitment required. Time commitment is always an issue in MMOs. How will Ghost approach this challenge? We've also gotten a few.
Maybe I'm in the minority here, but once someone chooses to play an MMO, that's the MMO that they're playing. I think very few players, there are some players that will main multiple MMOs at the same time, but generally speaking, in my experience, you main one game at a time, especially when it comes to MMOs.
Few questions in chat just sort of asking about like what a typical play session looks like. Are we thinking dailies and weeklies or other types of experiences?
I'm hesitating to answer this because I don't want to throw, other games under the bus, but generally dailies and weeklies are kind of low quality content that are easy for developers to add. So when you need to make sure your players have plenty of things to do, you add more dailies and weeklies because it's, you can play the same quest over and over and over again.
No.
So you're, really tired of it. That's not the framework we want to approach. Because we're telling the story in these chapter-based sessions, we're fine if someone finishes a chapter and pieces out until the next chapter comes along. That's great.
I think that's probably bullshit. I think that what developer in their right mind goes, yeah, we're totally okay if you just want to put down our game and go play other games. Fuck no, they want you to play it all the time. I cannot believe that word just came out of his mouth. This is a crazy take. This is crazy. There is no shot
Great. Again, if you want to stay and play the game, we will have plenty of alternate activities to do. We think that re-rolling and pushing blue shards is hopefully going to be really fun and have a lot of activity, and you will get rewards from it. But
Final Fantasy 14 approach, it means it'll be super casual. But like even still, you could be casual with BDO too, but the fact of the matter is, if you're playing BDO or if you're playing Final Fantasy, you're probably not also playing WoW necessarily. Or there's one game that you're playing way harder than the other games, and you always want it to be your game. So in this case, Ghost.
But it should feel optional. It shouldn't feel like every day I log in and I do my 4 blue shards, then I go do my daily quest, then I like do my long ass enchantment cooldown or whatever. The tricky part of answering a question like that is you don't want to send the message to the Eds of the world that like, oh, so you're saying your game's not gonna have much to do. Like, yes, there will be a lot to do, but we really want it to be tailored around, as a player, how much do you want to play? You're not going to be able to like be the best player in your guild with the best gear if you're like, hey, I like Ghost, but I only want to play a couple hours a week. But you could still progress and you can still see the content and finish the story if you play.
Is that you? No, it's not me. Maybe it's me in 25 years, you fuck.
A couple hours a week.
And I wanted to highlight one of the points that actually me and Christina were talking about. Christina actually blew my mind.
Plus, what the fuck is going to happen with my hair in 20 years? It's going to grow back like some kind of dysfunctional chia pet? Respectfully. Oh, shit.
The other day, because we were talking about gameplay loops, core loop, why people come back to the game, and one of the things that we were tackling was like the weekly reset model in MMOs and why they exist, and staying curious about like all their better alternatives. And so if we wanted this game to fit in your life, one of the things we could do is say, yeah, there's no raid lockout on raids. And like at first I was clutching my pearls because I was like, well, why will my guild log in every week? What will we do? But I think there's better reason. Like if you wanted to quit our game happy and full of gear because you've seen everything and then come back whenever we give you something else to give you, that's way more preferable than like you're leaving money on the table, you're leaving loot on the table if you don't clear this raid every week, if you don't finish all of your dailies. Like this is what we mean by fitting into your life. If you want to finish the game and move on, that's okay too. We're hoping that we give you a lot of stuff so that you don't like finish very quick.
This is the hottest take of developers I've ever seen. I am genuinely curious how they do. Yeah, we're totally okay with you going to play a different game that isn't ours. That's crazy to me. That is actually just crazy to me. Okay, how much do you intend to use advancements in AI? Can that help make worlds and NPCs feel more alive, more interactive? Oh, that's a good question.
That help make worlds and NPCs feel more alive or more interactive. Maybe over to you, Koob and Cam on that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started on that. As Greg already pointed out, we have such craftspeople that are already in our studio, and even with NetEase. And one of the things that we want to do with our game is mold this with the community through those craftspeople's hands. So it's really important that we're bringing the right team together that is able to craft this amazing world, this amazing content that we want to create. AI has been tools that people have been using for a long time, in different things, from things like Substance Designer, making procedural textures and things like that. And those are tools that we feel more comfortable using, but tools that may potentially plagiarize somebody's work is not something that we would do, and we want to definitely keep that kind of public.
I think this idea that they're going to have a player base that is going to log in when they have an expansion, and then they'll log out, and then they'll log in, and then they'll log out, and then they'll log in, and then they'll log out whenever new content gets released. I don't think that's how this is going to work. I think there's going to be a shitload of people that play right at the start, right? Then people are going to log out, and then not as many people are going to log back in on the next expansion. And then people are going to log out, and then not as many people are going to log in on the next. And it's just going to keep doing this. Like, and every once in a while, you might have a big one that brings it all the way back, but then those players leave again, and then you continue on your downward trend. Right? Like, I don't think that this is like a feasible model. That's why, like, I've never seen developers have this take before.
Content and
I've never seen this before. All right, let's see what the next question is. Partnering with players is a great value to have, but what is the strategy here? How do you intend to partner up, and what can we expect as players? Ooh.
What can we expect as players?
That's a great question. This is a brand new frontier. Like many of our
the idea of listening to your player base is in fact a new idea.
Or employers never would have gone for something like this. So we don't have a lot of examples to follow. I think some of the indie games do a pretty good job here of saying like, look, we want feedback early on, tell us what's working, what's not working. For the most part, our strategy is going to be,
we would like you to tell, like, honestly, this is how I feel with every developer in every game that I've ever played. We would like you to tell us your feedback, and then they just let us know when you're done giving us feedback. Every time. Every time. Like, I just don't believe it.
oversharing. And we know that's not every player's cup of tea. Some of you are probably not the ones watching the stream, but some players out there will say, you know, I want to wait until things are set in stone. I want to wait until I can play the game and see final art, and that's great. And we will make sure you know when we're at that stage. But we also think there are people who are excited to kind of come along this journey, see how the sausage is made, watch us pivot as like our ideas don't turn out as awesome as we think.
Okay, so they're planning to listen to the player base more than the other MMOs. They're not like the other girls. They're not like the other girls. Oh my God, that was a long question. But they've really fleshed these questions out. Being industry veterans, do you worry this may cloud the vision of the product with "we know better" mentality that seems to stagnate development as we've seen throughout the industry in recent years? That's a good question.
Development as we've seen throughout the industry in recent years. And related to that question that just came in
I wonder if they will answer with, "No, we just know better."
Chat from Paddles is, Greg mentioned a long time ago about hiring talent with no experience to see a fresher POV on game development. Do you have any news about that?
Yeah, I mean, 100% this is a concern of ours. When you get industry veterans, you have a lot of experience and you know how to set up a game from scratch. It is easy to lose touch with what our players, particularly younger players, you know, talking about these days. How do they interact with content? What kind of games are they even looking for?
Fuck the younger players. They change their mind every other minute. They're so hot-headed. You need to listen to the aged veterans, particularly the ones that don't have to use shampoo.
So, as Christina alluded to before, part of this is just talking to players, talking to younger players, talking to players from different demographics than we represent, talking to players in different countries around the world to kind of find out what's working for them. You know, do the current games they play, are they delivering? Is there something absent, you know, a niche?
Yeah, I just don't like the fact that he said younger players here. Like, the younger players are the ones that, like I said, they're hot-headed, bro. Who knew what they wanted when they were 18? No one. Like, what you wanted one second was out the window the next, and then you're on to the next thing. But as you get older, 25, 30, 35, 40, you're like, all right, I know what I want now.
We can feel. We will do focus groups. We will talk to a lot of players. And yes, we will hire.
Women is what I wanted. Well, they're going to cover that. There's no elves, but there will be elves.
People with little to no experience. I just think that will be an awesome way to get a fresh perspective, some crazy ideas. We are not at that place yet. We are a remote studio, so we cannot offer a ton of direct mentorship. Our tools are currently the...
All right, next question over to Shanti comes from at InnoShades, who asks, congrats to the team on the unveiling of the studio. On IGN, it was mentioned you want to avoid typical fantasy tropes such as orcs and elves. Do you have any other examples of tropes you want to avoid?
Oh, that's a good question.
Dwarves, gnomes, halflings.
No!
Dragonborn.
Love this question. A lot of games lean on tropes because tropes are there for a reason, right?
Why would you reinvent the wheel when you know it already works?
A hero overcoming some obstacles with their friends and being triumphant has been in stories for as long as humans have told stories. So we're not going to try to reinvent storytelling in game and avoid all tropes.
Okay.
That being said, one thing we are very excited about is the the possibility of playing more in kind of the gray space between the good and the bad. We love it when you can understand why a villain may be doing something, even if you don't agree with it. Or watching a hero that 2 seasons ago was your favorite, maybe starting to make some choices that you're not so excited about anymore.
Oh, so we pivoted over towards the lore. Okay, so now he's talking about the morally ambiguous storytelling. Yeah, well, that's what we wanted in the first place, so that's fine. That's okay.
We want to be respectful of the passion and the love.
Yeah, The Boys is a good example. Riot does a good job with this. You could tell they're previous Riot developers.
That players have for characters in the world, but we think there's a lot of really interesting area there in the gray that we can deliver awesome stories and incredible characters for you.
Yeah, and if I were to add to that, that's what I love so much about being able to have art partnership with IP and narrative, because it really helps drive what we could do visually, with that. Already when, Art has been sharing with the team on our kind of weekly cadence of, oh, what about this? Or, Shanti will start, throwing in some designs, and then Greg's like,
okay, all right, so they're going to do some morally ambiguous storytelling. I like that. That's good. What's your take on solo players? There are people who like existing in a shared world but have trouble finding time to filter a group or competent players to play with. Is the game built with loners in mind? This is the most BDO fucking question I have seen yet. Hands down.
There are people who like existing in a shared world but have trouble finding time to
I don't know, man. Like that, they covered this earlier with like the shards. They're going to talk about the red shards and the blue shards. You're playing an MMO, massive multiplayer online fucking game, meaning you're going to have to interact with other people most of the time.
Filter a group of competent people to play with. Is the game built with loners in mind? Maybe over to you, Ken.
I don't think that loners have a lot of stay time in an MMO. MMOs are basically fundamentally built around the community and players interacting with each other. If you have solo players, it kind of defeats the purpose of having an MMO.
Sure, yeah. I mean, some of the stuff I touched on earlier about blue shards and being able to pick your difficulty, it's definitely more solo friendly. Will I say that you'll be able to do everything in the game and kill every monster by yourself? Probably not, but...
That's what I'm looking for. Okay. So, controversial take, L take. What about that was an L take? Look, I don't like, there's always going to be solo play in an MMO. That is fine. That's not what I'm saying. There's always going to be solo play in an MMO. No big deal. But to be able to play the entire game solo without ever interacting with players, it's just not a realistic model for a game like an MMO. Okay? BDO has a lot of solo content that it does. Okay? I wish there was more group content that kind of forced you to do some group PvP. Could you play solo all the time? If you wanted to, sure. But in the most part, if you want to get like the end game gear and stuff, you should have to go interact with players.
Blue shards are a great answer to that problem where you can...
Final Fantasy supports this? No, Final Fantasy proves this. The dungeons and the raids in Final Fantasy are actually like what make the game super crazy good outside of the storyline. The storyline is super solo. Like you could play the like totally solo through the whole main storyline, sure. But then in order to do like the really meaty aspect of the MMO, you got to get together and do the raid with the homies. Like you got to make friends and interact. It's important.
Roll a new blue shard, do as much stuff as you can, kill the bosses that you can kill, but then when it starts getting too rowdy, just dump it down the toilet, start the next one. Don't dump it down. Give it to the city, or blow it up, or do whatever. So I think blue shards give us a lot of access there, but also, like I had mentioned before, the red zones that we're gonna do should be concentrated in just the things that only a big, like contiguous open world can provide in an MMO. So things, Greg had mentioned, it's kind of like Timeless Isle if you ever played World of Warcraft.
Right, so they're going to have blue shards where you can play solo for a long time, but you're going to want to go into the red shard world, interact with people in order to get some of your gear. Could you stay in the blue shard world the whole time? Absolutely, there will be always players that do that, but like you need to be like at least encourage people to go interact with each other in the open world because that's what keeps them playing the game.
Warcraft, but the idea there is like there's always something to do, there's something you can jump in on, and you're always welcome whenever you do it. So things like world bosses that are rotating left and right, there's things like treasures to find, and so yeah, I think that touching on
I hate
both blue
world
shards
bosses.
and
I hate world bosses. They are always just inevitably loot pinatas.
red shards. Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention was that we also want to explore leaderboard content, stuff like whenever you play Diablo and you say like, well, if I think I'm the best paladin, can I do some greater rifts and find out if I really am the best paladin? And so hopefully there's a lot for you there too if you're a solo player, but definitely the game has solo in mind. Hopefully you're playing a lot of alts though, because that would be really cool.
There's something that comes to mind when I hear that question too, which is like, there are definitely players who want to play solo, which is great, right? Like I think we've all probably been.
Yeah, but like realistically, your best experiences in MMOs come with the group play. Even if you like to play the game solo most of the time, I bet your best experiences in the MMO come from group play.
In that space where like I just want to like log in and like do a thing by myself, which is I think it's awesome. Yeah, it's how you feel now. Yeah, but there are also players who would love to find a friend group to play with, and they don't have the right tools to do it, right? Like they don't want to be match made into a guild of like people they don't know, or like they just don't want to kind of go down that path. And you know, some players like me have been like super lucky to raid with a bunch of clueless gamers, shout out Derez, you know, for the past 3 years or whatever in WoW Classic, but it's hard to find that group that you're really going to click with. And so
yeah, well, obviously there's always going to be players that want to play solo or that are introverts and don't necessarily want to go through the effort of finding other players, but that's why you have to make it easy on them, or just let them play the game solo. Sure, like it needs to have solo aspects, but like in order to do like the really meaty stuff like the raids, like okay, now you got to get together and like, all right, you're going to have to go play with some other people. But you can play the game solo for 95% of the time if you want to. But you should also be able to play it with a group 95% of the time too.
Like one thing we should be thinking about a lot is how do we build tools to help?
If you play alone, you will quit the game sooner. That's than a player that has or that gets involved in the community. Yeah, that's always been the case for MMOs.
Help connect people so that they can find that group that they do want to play with them when they want to play with people, and then let them play by themselves when they don't want to, you know? Yeah.
That's a great segue. Part of that actually is another superpower of the blue shards is that we can create roles within a community that don't exist in other MMOs. I think about the time that I played Rust. I cherish all the time.
Make it easier in a group than it is for solo? No. You misunderstand. You need to make it more fun for the group than it is to do solo. Right? You want that one experience that person had with a group, you want it to be a positive one. Because if they interact with people and they have friends that play the game, they're more likely to stay.
Time I played Rust, I didn't like killing players. It's actually
fuck Rust, dude.
Like a PvP elimination game, but I don't like to kill players. What I like to do,
I don't really like killing players either, unless it's large-scale PvP.
Was like organize all the stuff in our bags. Yeah. Be sure that everyone had like their raid ready. Here's your jacket. Here's your food.
Oh yeah, large-scale PvE is way better. If you've got like big scale raids and stuff where you're going in with the homies, that's the best version of an MMO, in my opinion. I love that more.
Here's your AK-47, and sometimes when you log into the game, you're gonna have some like creepy like picture of a clown looking at you, or a mural of Rick and Morty in our house. I kind of like that role of just being like, I'm going to be the one that combines things. I'm going to be the one that like decorates our house and makes it look beautiful. I'll never go out into combat, and that's okay. And so like, when
Blue,
you think
I'm
about
sorry,
being
but I'm
embraced
calling
by...
bullshit. I've watched you War and Ziggy JSIPX'd out.
And X'd out. Well, I like warring, but like you would see me shot call a raid, and it would be the best content in your life. On God. On God. You should watch me shot call a Destiny raid sometime.
Community, you
watch how many people have to go to therapy.
You can be valued for more than just the DPS that you put on the meter or the healing that you do to the tank, and that's really important to us.
And I'll say just one more thing, and then we really will move on to another question, but also all of those roles Candace is talking about.
Will there be a focus on everyone should be able to get everything, or will there be a discrepancy between the hardcore gamer investing all their time and the casual who just wants to have fun?
There better be a discrepancy.
Just throwing that up there.
Anyone want that? I mean, I could start.
Bro, if I spend a massive amount of time on the game, I feel like I should have more shit.
We think exclusivity is cool.
Yes.
I think it's awesome when you have a sword that nobody else has, or at least it's very rare. And then you strut around the city, and we call it peacocking when other people get to see that and they're like, "Oh, you're awesome," or maybe just very lucky. Flamingos. Maybe just very lucky that you got that. I think. Again, when players don't have enough to do, they start to look at, I need to find best in slot for all of my equipment, and then when I do that, I'm kind of done with the character. But we hope we unask that question a little bit by having lots of items where you don't necessarily know where they come from. They might drop on a blue shard. In
other words, yes, it's going to be exclusive to people. Yeah, awesome. Like you play the game more, you get rewarded more. Good.
I want to thank you for the all of the.
And then there's the outro. Okay. Yeah, I know we went through it a little fast, but like, I was just cutting out all the bullshit. Here's the video right here. Like we're all, I'm sure, very optimistic in the MMO community to see a new MMO being developed. And in 7 years, when we actually get to this MMO, we're going to be really happy about it. We're going to be really happy about it. Okay.